Good morning, everyone. If I can ask that everybody please take their seats at this moment in time. Thank you all for joining us today at Middlesex County College for the first ever College Readiness Now meeting. At this moment in time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lawrence Nespoli, President of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for getting in the car. I must have missed the weather memo last night. I looked out the window this morning. What the heck's going on? But thank you all for your perseverance. We're pleased, grateful to be here, hosted by Middlesex County College today. And I want to ask President Joanna Perla Morales to come up and offer greetings. And as she's making her way up here, a thank you is in order. I think some of you know that New Jersey was one of just a couple of states to receive funding from the Kresge Foundation for a Center for Student Success. That's what this conversation today is largely about, student success. And so President LaPerla Morales was kind enough to give us a home here at Middlesex. She'll tell you maybe about the history of Middlesex, but I think we promoted Jacinia Mattis and Lou Venturelli, who you just heard from, as officers, I think, to be in the facility. Joanna will explain the connection to the military. But Joanna, come up, please, and thank you for hosting us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Larry, you obviously are not a college president because snow is the thing we think about the most at this time of the year. We don't go to sleep without thinking about that. Anyway, welcome to Middlesex County College. I feel like I'm saying welcome, but I know so many faces here. You've been here so many times for these kinds of gatherings, and it's great. We hope that you leave your energy here in this room as we get ready for our next semester, as most of you are. What Larry was referring to is that Middlesex County College, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, along with Ocean County College. Do we have Ocean County College people here? Okay. The two oldest community colleges in the state. Middlesex County College is located on what was the Raritan Arsenal, and it was the Arsenal right up until the college was formed here. So today, the reason I'm on campus is we're having some water main leak problems, and we're probably going to be closing 4 buildings tomorrow. Not this one, don't worry. So those are the kind of challenges we all have in our aging infrastructure, but you're here today to talk about our students and their success, and that is all about what we're all about. And as we get ready to start a new semester, we're always fortunate in higher ed because we get to start twice a year, not just once a year like most people. So slate is clean, clean notebooks, we get to start fresh in January, and let's hope this will be a wonderful, successful semester for all of us and our students. So Happy New Year and all the best in 2015.
Thank you, Joanne. And Louis tells me that you deserve our thank you as well for, as I understand it, thinking about having this convening. This is all about student success, and we'll talk more about that throughout the day. But again, as Jacinia and Lou have explained to me, it was one of the conversations. We had monthly conference calls with the campus leads in this College Readiness Now project, and one or more, and several of you suggested that it would be good to gather at the end of the first round of funding. And notice I said first round. We'll have more to say later about a second round. So thank you for that suggestion. You know, by any standard, New Jersey's community colleges are just a great success story. You know that. It's remarkable if you think about it in at least the lifetime of some of us here, in 50 years that America's community colleges have been around. It's just remarkable what a difference they're making and what a difference you all are making. Today happens to be an especially, I think, exciting, proud day for community college leaders who'd like to take a shot at lots of reasons for that being true, but there's one in particular I have in mind. Those of you who listened to your news feeds or read your news feeds last night, why is today an especially exciting day? Please.
Free community college for all. Chicken in every pot.
Everybody heard that? Our president, leader of the free world, kind of a big deal that President Obama is in Tennessee later today, Knoxville, announcing a very exciting proposal to, much like our NJ STARS program, but an expanded vision, Tennessee. This is a bipartisan love fest, by the way, about community colleges. President Obama, of course, leader of the Democratic Party, traveling to Tennessee. Some of you may be less aware that President Obama traveling to Knoxville to meet with Governor Haslam, I think Haslam, Bill maybe? Republican governor, in fact, the newly elected chair of the National Republican Governors Association, who has made the Tennessee Promise program, free 2 years of community college in Tennessee for all high school graduates who want it and deserve it, the centerpiece of his legislative and policy agenda in Tennessee. He was just elected, Governor Haslam, to be the chair of the Governors Association, taking the reins from our governor, Governor Christie, who was chair throughout the past year. So truly, truly an exciting time. How many of you, quick show of hands, have been doing this community college work? I know we have guests from the K-12 world here. How many of you have been doing this community college work for 5 years? And keep your hands up. 10 years? 15? 20? Your hands are getting tired? 25? 30? 35? I think I'll stop there. But you get the point. What wisdom we have in this room that we're going to bring to bear around this College Readiness Now, and the most important message the most important seed I'd like to plant on the front end is, although there are no silver bullets in this work around student success, this is a program and initiative that we know works. It makes a difference. Now you're going to be hearing more from Professor Kerrigan about what had especially caught our eye in this first round as to what works. Going to be hearing from Elizabeth Barnett from the Community College Research Center for a national overview of what's been working. So this is good stuff. If you look at the agenda today in this packet that you were handed as you arrived, there's a good quote there from our national association about twin challenges. And the AACC, the American Association of Community Colleges, points to one, the need to reform developmental ed. We get that. We're all over that in our Big Ideas work. But two, as it says here, substantially improve the college readiness of students as they enter our colleges. Now think about it. Of those two twin challenges, the people that I talked to, and you'll hear more from Monica and Elizabeth about this, the people I've talked to, I think, are of a mind, more than not, that it's the College Readiness Now initiative that is more cost-effective for all of the obvious reasons. And while we need to attend to both of those challenges, this work is especially promising. We're very blessed here in New Jersey to have the leadership of our presidents and our trustees. And I'd like to bring one of each up with short notice. I apologize, Bakari. But Ray Yunsi, president of Camden, and Bakari Lee, a trustee from Hudson, part of our leadership team. I know, Ray, other presidents are here in the room. You may want to recognize them. But a quick word from the leadership of our presidents and trustees. Both of these gentlemen are not only leaders at Camden and Hudson, but also part of our council executive leadership team. Dr. Yunsi.
Thank you, Larry, and I'd like to welcome everyone here on behalf of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges President's Council. And maybe first I'll introduce our trustee, who is the former past chair of the trustees group of the county councils, and will be moving up in a year and a half, 2 years, to be chair of the AACCT, American Association of Community College Trustees, from Hudson County Community College, Bakari Lee.
Good morning, everyone. Not too much to say here. Didn't expect to be called before you. I will just begin by saying good morning first and foremost. Surprising news last night regarding the President's initiative to make community colleges free throughout the country. We hope that come to pass. I think Tennessee provides a fantastic model for that. But beyond that, looking forward to a wonderful day of work here today. As I'm fond of saying, we are doing the Lord's work. So I think that we continue to do that and continue to push our initiatives forward We have a wonderful track record of success in this state. Organized autonomy, I think Larry calls it. So let's just continue to keep the faith and continue to do what we do. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. And you know, lots of times we don't have as much contact with our trustees at our institutions. They meet a couple of times a month. Sometimes we see them at the trustees meetings or committee meetings. We don't often interact with them. But I will credit the trustees and under Bakari's leadership for being part of the impetus to the things that have resulted here today. You've heard about the Big Ideas Project, one of Larry's things that sometimes heard enough of the big ideas, but it was from the trustees originally that they said, you know, you got to do something about college readiness and developmental education. We knew we did. The presidents knew we did. The vice presidents knew we did. But with all the things that are on our minds, like Joanne's bursting pipes and so forth, sometimes these issues get put to the side, even though they're the most important things that we do have to deal with. So we are focused on it now. We were able to get some funding to develop these programs, and you're going to hear about them today and find out what has worked most effectively and what we're going to continue to work on in the future. I want to acknowledge one of my other colleague presidents here, Maureen Murphy from Brookdale, in the middle there with her lovely scarf. So Larry stopped at 35, but I'm starting my 45th year this semester in community college. We used to hire people young back then in the 1970s. Now we want people to have PhDs already before we even interview them. But this issue of developmental education has been our focus from then on. When we were about access, you know, you hear people talk about, now we're about success instead of access. But one of the reasons that we were able to provide access to so many people to a college education is that we developed programs like these that took people who wanted to attend, wanted to improve themselves, wanted to get better skills in education, but had lacks in reading, writing, math, other skills. So we put together programs to address that. And in the 1970s, believe it or not, in the beginning, people just came in and took classes, but they weren't doing well. So we said, no, we need a course, some kind of course. And we developed a course in reading or writing or math. And then we developed a second one, and then we developed a third one. And there's some logic to that, because if students weren't able to get these skills in 12 years of education, 15 weeks may not be enough to bring them up to the level that we need. But we know that over the years, situations have changed. The ability of students to pay for these kinds of programs has diminished under the Pell Grant rules, although maybe we have some optimistic news out of Washington today. And the students that we're getting have changed too. We're getting more students. We're getting every student who now graduates high school pretty much needs to come to us for something. So we need to look at what we do to provide skills development. And as Larry said, the best way to do it is to get involved with our high schools at an earlier age and to work with these students when they're in sophomore year, junior year, senior year, to let them know what their skill levels are and what skill levels we expect. One of the ways we're going to be doing that is through all of the programs you've developed, and we'll hear more about them today from Monica and other people who've worked on this in a scholarly manner. But this will be a critical thing for us to decide, for you to decide in the years ahead, as we work with school districts implementing the Common Core and the PARCC exams. Right now we've used AccuPlacer. People don't want to rely on the HESPA test as a measure of college readiness. We know that doesn't show much. But the new exams will show, I think, pretty significantly where students' skills are and what we need to do to bring them up to the levels that we want. The techniques and the programs that you've developed, both within the high schools, between junior and senior year, in senior year, between senior year and coming to us, all will have an effect on the ability of students to come to us and take courses right away that they want to do to be on a track to a college degree. But we also can use these same techniques and the procedures that you're developing and have worked on for the other half of our population, which doesn't come to us directly from high school. We need to find some way of delivering developmental work to students who are coming for certificates or short-term training. Because in any field these days, you need to have the reading, writing, and math skills to work in automotive, to work in entry-level allied health. We know that many of our students aren't going to come to us for a 2-year degree. They're going to come to us for a short-term certificate. That's part of what we hear a lot from state and federal government about job training. And I think that's a good thing that what we do. It's not all of what we do, but I think job training will always be part of our mission. And we need to figure out how we can do that and provide developmental skills in a shorter, more compact, more effective way. It's a difficult issue, but that's what you've been working on. So I thank you for the work you've done up to this point. You're going to hear more research about the work that you've done. And we are very fortunate. Larry's been working, the presidents have been working in trying to continue the funding for these kinds of programs. So we think that the interventions and the special things you've developed this past year will lead to even better things for the students who come to us in years ahead. So thank you for your work, and have a great day here.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Bakari. Thank you, Joanne. So let's get started. A couple of more quick preliminaries. Ray's mention of AccuPlacer reminded me to introduce and recognize a good friend, Keith Henry. Keith, if you'd raise your hand, stand from the College Board. Most of you did deploy College Board AccuPlacer diagnostics, and so if you have questions throughout the day, Keith is gracious enough to be here to make himself available for that purpose. And you know, none of this happens, of course, without the leadership of our high schools and the superintendents and the teachers and the principals. And we're going to have Mike Gorman come up in a second. Jacinia will introduce Mike, the superintendent of Pemberton Schools, to say a bit more from that perspective. So let's get started. Let's start to drill down in this great success story called community colleges and in this great work called College Readiness Now. We saw from the show of hands, there's a lot of wonderful wisdom and experience in this room. But I think most of you will agree, even the senior leaders, Ray and I and others, senior leaders so to speak, that if you really want to be energized in a given day, you know, surround yourself with young people. And to that end, let's get started by bringing up Jacinia Mattis. You've met Lou Venturelli. If you're having a bad day for whatever the reasons, I suggest you spend 5 minutes alone with Jacinia and Lou, and your day will be brightened and sweet. Thank you again to Maureen Murphy, president of Brookdale, for making Jacinia available to be the executive director of our Kresge-funded Center for Student Success on release time for Brookdale. And she has hit the ground running, along with Lou, the dynamic duo, as we like to refer to them in our office. Jacinia will get us started right now to hear more from our featured speakers, but this is all about wanting to be an interactive session. You can see that in the agenda. Thank you for being here. Jacinia, let's get started.
Good morning. Oh, we can do better than that. Come on, a really good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Great. I want to say thank you so much to all of you who had to trek through some not so nice conditions this morning to get here. It is just wonderful to look out and see so many faces and feel your energy. So thank you very much for being here. We're going to start the program. Before we do, I'd like to acknowledge our advisory board members. If those of you that are on the advisory board for the Student Success Center can stand, we would like to acknowledge you. I know that there are several of you here. Thank you. We also have a special guest in the back from the New Jersey Student Success Advisory Board through the Office of Secretary Hendricks, so thank you for joining us. I'll wave from here. He knows who he is. To get started, I thought it would be great to bring up Dr. Michael Gorman, Pemberton School Superintendent, to talk a little bit about what it means to have partnerships between our community colleges and our high schools and what it means to students. So all of you in the room, you were able to make a difference in the lives of more than 900 students. Because of the work that you did, 900 students in the state of New Jersey advanced, are either college ready or only one level away from being college ready. And that's something to applaud, and that's something to be really proud of. So thank you for all the work that you did, and I'll bring my colleague.
Appreciate that. You don't have to worry because not much fits on a pad like this. Obviously, one of these folks is not like the others. I come here from a K-12 perspective, and as the President was alluding to a little earlier, snow. You think a college president has to worry about snow? You know how many phone calls I got while on the turnpike this morning? Are we closing early? And burst pipes? Yeah, Emmons Elementary School, we've moved half a wing out, and yeah, it's universal. I bring that up because there are a lot more similarities than there are differences. Where there are differences, they're pretty significant. And I will disagree with, to a minimal degree, because earlier it was said that there are no silver bullets. There is. Education. Learning is the silver bullet. It solves every problem that exists. I don't care what it is. If we have enough knowledge, we get there. And that's the whole emphasis here. Over the last 5 years, and I'm a veteran, I've been in business a long time, even though my youthful demeanor may not convey that, the fact is, I've been in New Jersey for 35 years and I've been in business for 40. The fact of the matter is, over the last 5 years, there's been more purposeful and direct conversation regarding the need for symbiotic relationship between K-12 and the community college environment than ever in the previous century, I'm sure. It's just been remarkable what has taken place. The task force that I was fortunate to work with a few years ago, and the whole conversation is not necessarily pointing at K-12 saying, well, you're not sending us college-ready kids. The conversation is really grounded in, these are the things we need them to be able to do. And on the K-12 side, we're pretty bright people. We catch on. Once we know what is needed, what is wanted, what is really the foundation of this, we'll get there. But until the last 5 years, I don't think there has been as much direct conversation. Most of us are giving acuplacer to, at the very least, our juniors. That's a good starting place, because now we get data that we didn't have before that tells us where our kids are and what they have to do, because there's nothing more discouraging to me as a public school educator, and I was a principal for 15 years. When I saw those reports about how many were going into developmental classes, it was crushing. And the idea is, we don't want failure any more than anybody else does, and there's no more longer that finger pointing between the community college and the high school. It's much more, what can we do to make it right? And I think efforts like this, focusing on student success, is what we're all about too. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you so very much, and let's have some fun.
So in your packets, you'll be able to follow along with today's presentations. We do have some speaker bios, and we've given you a list of some of the leads for many of our campuses in case you want to engage after today with some of those folks. We really designed the day so that you can hear from some figures, experts in the field, if you will, hear about the evaluation for the program here in New Jersey, and then to engage in conversation about what worked at your institution, how we can bring these things to scale, and how we can improve. So we look forward to the day. I'll bring up Mr. Lou Venturelli, Assistant Director for the Center, and he will introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
This is the easy part because I get to read right off of this paper. But if you'd follow along, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Dr. Monica Reed Kerrigan. Dr. Kerrigan is an Assistant Professor of Educational Leadership at Rowan University, where she coordinates the Community College Leadership Initiative track of the doctoral program. Previously, she was a research associate at the Community College Research Center at Teachers College, Columbia University, where she served as a project leader for a survey of faculty and administrators' use of data for the Achieving the Dream evaluation and an evaluation of the NSF Advanced Technological Education Regional Centers. At Rowan University, she teaches courses on research methods, leadership theory, educational policy, and the American Community College. Her research focuses on the organizational structures and environmental factors that influence community college reforms to support student success. She holds an EDD in higher and post-secondary education and a master's in higher education administration from Teachers College, Columbia University. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Monica Reed Kerrigan to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This moves. So I'm thrilled to be here this morning. I had an opportunity to conduct this evaluation over the past year, And through that opportunity, I was able to not only work closely with the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, but really get out to a lot of your campuses and get to know many of you. I met some of you face-to-face for the first time this morning, but I wanted to begin by thanking you for your time, for your willingness to share, and really for the experiences that you committed to over the summer and that you shared with me. For those of you whose colleges I haven't gotten to yet, you'll see my number pop up on your phone in the next few weeks, and I do look forward to coming out and visiting you soon. So you already know who I am. And I was brought in to conduct the evaluation. So within New Jersey, you all know that the grant was awarded to the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and that all 19 New Jersey County Colleges received funding. 18 of the colleges implemented some form of transition program in the spring or summer of 2014. One college developed a program model and related academic curricular activities to be used for future implementation, just in case you're sitting here later on doing some math about the number of colleges I'm talking about. After I'm done, Dr. Elizabeth Barnett will be talking about the broader context. We all know that the work that we've been doing within New Jersey is so important and so needed, but it's not unique to New Jersey. These issues and these conversations are going national, and Dr. Barnett will be able to talk about what's been going on with some of the states she's been working with, and give us a bit of a broader context to the work that we're doing. For those of you who don't know, we do have a broader plan. Year one, the idea was to just let you go for it. See what you come up with, allow you to rely on the expertise that you all have as professionals within this field and your experience. We saw the number of hands that went up earlier in terms of experience, years of experience. So the colleges had the latitude to choose their own approach. And what we saw in the end was that there were a wide range of programs that reached low-income students, some who were almost college ready, and then others who were not, who needed a lot more support to become college ready. The evaluation sought to understand the breadth of approaches that were tried in this first year and to explore some of those promising practices. And then to make some recommendations about how we might coalesce around some ideas moving into years 2 and hopefully years 3. You will hear not just from me, but I've invited colleagues from around the state, program coordinators like yourselves, to share a little bit of information about ideas that we coined as promising practices. And I've told them to be very brief. We don't have a whole lot of time. So what I would encourage is that if something piques your interest, please go find that person after the session today and ask for some details. They can all provide you with a lot of information. In year 2, we're looking to converge around 3 approaches to transition programs. We're looking to focus on students who are almost college ready, really focusing our efforts, in recognizing that we have limited resources in terms of time, in terms of funding, and in terms of individuals like yourselves. So looking to focus on a set of students whom we can reasonably confidently move quickly into college ready. Allowing colleges to select the most appropriate approach for their population. I want to be clear, I heard many of you say to me, and I heard that you don't want to be told to implement a certain kind of program. You are looking to be able to implement a program that reflects your college's culture, the relationships that you have with districts, and your students. And so what we tried to do is we really tried to honor that request moving forward. And then finally, we're looking to roll out into the second year in ways that allow for an even more rigorous evaluation of outcomes of those 3 approaches, so that we can begin to say, that certain things work or certain things don't work. Dr. Barnett will talk later on about the struggles that they're having, even at a national level in other states, looking at this idea of what's effective. What really influences outcomes? And that is a persistent question. So for the evaluation, we had interview data from 25 program coordinators and instructors at 13 New Jersey community colleges. 5 focus groups with students. I had a great time talking with students. Surveys from 172 students at 6 colleges. And analyses of 19 final reports that were submitted from you all. So let's get to the meat. First of all, I think this slide is really the place to start, and it's the place to congratulate you on your efforts and your successes. So we had 18 community colleges who implemented a summer or spring transition program in this past year. You connected with 60 high schools across the state. You tested more than 4,000 high school students, and you enrolled more than 900 students in transition programs. That's quite an accomplishment, especially, I know, as a last-minute effort that some of you had to work with. 440 students were subsequently college ready, so that's a fantastic outcome for us. And another 450 students improved their arithmetic, algebra, reading, and or writing skills. So we got improvement, as Yesenia said, for 900 students. And we have more than 400 students who are now college ready that weren't when they started. One of the things I was interested in looking at across the programs was how many programs did we have that showed improvement, where students improved in some way. Now maybe that meant they were college ready, but maybe what it meant is that they moved up to a next course in the developmental cycle. So we had 13 programs in which at least 2/3 of the participants improved. And I think, that's really significant. That's more than half. That's moving towards affecting a significant number of students who participated in your programs. We had 10 programs in which at least half of the participants were college ready, and then 5 in which at least 2/3 of their participants were college ready. So those 5 not just improved the outcomes of their students, they got the majority of their students college ready through this transition program. So recalling that you had a lot of opportunity to decide how you wanted to implement the program that you implemented this past spring and summer, we saw a lot of variation in structure. Of the 18 programs, 13 were new. 6 were extensions of existing programs that you already had in some format. Some of you either had existing relationships with high schools and were offering maybe summer programs or during semester programs, and so you extended those through this grant. At the moment, we can't yet say anything about whether one group was more effective or less effective. So for example, we might speculate that those of you with experience and building on existing programs might be more effective, but we can't say anything about that yet. We have programs that varied in their timing. As we said, there are programs that implemented in spring, so they worked with schools during the academic year. We have 14 colleges that offered summer transition programs, and those ranged from 1 week to 8 weeks. So again, there was a lot of variation in how you approached this task. 4 of the colleges offered both spring and summer programs, so those colleges were very busy in coordinating efforts this past year. Now, there was a convergence around subject matter, clearly because there are priorities, and those AccuPlacer tests that students have to take to place into courses at the colleges are focused in the areas of math and writing and reading instruction. So we saw the majority of colleges, 18, offered instruction in math, and 16 offered instruction in writing and or reading. But what we also saw was some variety in instructional models, and the gentleman back there from the College Board, we used a recent publication from the College Board to categorize the approaches that you took in terms of offering instructional models. We saw independent study. We saw independent study with guidance. So for those of you who offered perhaps a My Foundations Lab experience with instructors and tutors alongside. Lab, so independent lab time or supplemental lab time. And then blended learning. And that last option was very popular within the state. So 6 colleges relied extensively on some form of computer-based instruction. So My Foundations Lab was very popular, but we saw some other products and options used throughout. As I said before, some of the colleges also provided instructional support, and in talking with students, that sounds important. Students seem to reflect less positively when they were left to their own devices. So in cases when they sort of had to make their way through using a computer-based instruction on their own, we heard things like, it's boring, it's impersonal. There's nobody there to tell you why you're wrong. So they felt a little in need of some guidance. On the flip side, we also heard some positive efforts that students were pleased to be able to go at their own speed. And some of them really did enjoy the autonomy that came with working on using a CBI approach. The majority of other programs adapted existing college developmental education courses to the spring and summer format. Probably the biggest challenge that some of you had that used that format was condensing a 16, 18-week class into 5 weeks, or perhaps 8 weeks. And so when I spoke with you, you spoke to me about the challenges of doing so, the challenges of trying to figure out what's important, what's most important, and also working with students who aren't yet college aged. So in terms of working with students who were, juniors in high school, and what that meant for developing and delivering instruction. So we have some promising practices. The first one I wanted to highlight is this idea of sort of a short and intensive program. Dr. Barnett's going to follow up with some ideas around what we know works and maybe what doesn't. And it's not always intuitive and it's not always what we want to hear. But one of the things that I do want to highlight was Atlantic Cape. We have a couple of representatives from Atlantic Cape here this morning. They did it short, sweet, and fast. And I'm highlighting them because they had among the greatest success in terms of enrolling the largest number of students, and then getting the most students through. Their program was 4 days, intensive math, 4 days, and I think something to think about moving forward is the idea of recruitment. So success in recruitment may have something to do with the idea that students didn't feel like they were having to give up their summer or time during the semester. It was very short, and there was also less of a chance to lose students, right? The chance of losing students over 4 days is less than the chance of losing students over 8 weeks or 16 weeks. And so it's something to think about. Again, we don't have any causal recommendations on this works better or not. All we're suggesting is these are things to follow up on and consider moving forward. So we also had a variety of locations. All of the colleges that worked with high schools during the spring term offered their program at the high school. And it was interesting. We heard from people who thought, well, if you do it during spring, right, you've got students as a captive audience. They're already at school, right? So it's going to be easier. And what I heard from people is that, no, it's not necessarily easier. And the former superintendent who spoke, alluded to the challenges that they have in their schools and the challenges the students have as well. The colleges that worked with programs during the high school had to make sure they were working with the schools to accommodate testing schedules and existing semester timing and the needs for students to leave school at a certain time and go and pursue work opportunities or even recreational opportunities. So they had more challenges than they anticipated. We also had programs that worked over the summer, and 11 of those offered programs at the high school, and 11 offered them at the college. And there's been some conversation nationally and some research done about, so where do you offer these kinds of transition programs? Does it help to have it on the college campus or at the high school? If you have it on a college campus, are you bringing students to the college so that they can see what it's like, so they can feel what it's like, and they get acclimated to the idea of being a college student? Well, we heard from students, and they appreciated the physical and the personal aspects of taking a class at college. They felt like they were at college physically. Some things that maybe we don't always recognize. So something like the furniture. The furniture they felt was, they were comfortable. It felt different to them. They felt like in the courses, in the class time, they had more freedom. They could take emergency phone calls or use facilities, and they did feel like they were being treated as college students. But if we look at the outcomes in terms of the number of students who completed, the number of students who transitioned from one level to the next, we don't have any clear-cut answers as to one location being more advantageous than the other. There was another area that we looked at that we thought was important, and that's the idea of college experience and college knowledge. We had two programs that specifically offered credit-bearing college success courses. 13 colleges offered some form of college information through workshops, trips, and what we found through a survey is that more than 31% of the students reported that learning about college, how to navigate, having that real college experience was the single most useful thing about the program to them. And I think that's important, especially in light of some of the national literature on that college experience, that importance of having a college experience. What we also heard from students was they learned some very useful things. One student coined it as, now I know there's help if I need it. This student said, he walked into that classroom and didn't realize that if he struggled, there would be people there to help him. And he knew that when he left that transition program. And so I think that kind of information, whether delivered as a workshop or delivered in structured courses, credit-bearing courses, that kind of information is really useful to convey to students. So I have two promising practices that I want to share around college information. And for that, I'm going to ask two coordinators of programs from around New Jersey to share their experiences. The first is Charles Stewart from Camden County College. Charles, would you stand?
Yes.
And Charles, if you would just briefly explain how Camden County College worked with your college success course.
Yes. First, I would like to thank people like Chickering, Aston, and Tinto for their research. Their research and effort made it very, very easy for us to develop our career and college readiness class around the social emotional behavior aspect of preparing our students for college readiness. And we focused on college terminology and critical thinking. Thrusting a young person into an arena where they may not know what matriculation is, or the difference between enrollment and registration, and how to figure out, if I work an extra job, the impact on the EFC. They need to know these things. So we worked very, very hard with the support of our Records and Registration Office, our Advisement Center, our Financial Aid Office, to make those terms that we went over feverishly in our class more validated. We made it real for them by inviting those people to come in and give full explanations of the impact and the quality of the services that they would receive from the college. From a critical thinking aspect, I use a lot of scenarios, real life scenarios, that over the years of me advising, I was an EOF advisor for the past 7 years, and the experiences that I've had with those students, I use those scenarios so that these new students can now see that the experiences that they already have, like Dr. Lee Duckworth, and she talks about grit, that these experiences you've already had, now it becomes a little bit more real for you. And now you can critically think about all the services that we have, all the people that are available to you to help you through the process of being college ready, and to avoid academic probation, to retain yourself so that you can attain your degree. So thank you again for all of those people that did the research, did the heavy lifting for me, that made it easy for us at Camden County College to develop our career and college readiness class. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm also going to ask Joanne Travaglini from Raritan Valley College to talk about their experiences. They took a slightly different approach. Instead of a full credit course, they worked through workshops that still conveyed this idea of college knowledge, but in a different approach.
Yeah, our objective for our Language of Success workshops were really to bring college into the high school, to make it more real for the students. And our students at the end of the College Readiness Now program were going to be earning CEP credit. So we wanted to make sure that we touched on success in college. We held our panels at both of the high schools, and we held them on our writing workshop days to get the best attendance. We had student panels, which consisted of successful RBCC students who were also alumni of each of the high school. And we felt that this was important because the College Readiness Now students could relate to those students. In most cases, they either knew the students or they were very similar in background and experiences that they had. You know, they were very similar types of students. And we felt that they could really relate to those students that we were bringing in. So we brought a panel of the students. The student panelists decided with me, they met with me, on the topics that they wanted to discuss, that they thought it would be important to share with the high school students who were in the same boat, a year ago. And they also decided to dress up because they wanted to show the students that, you know what, hey, we're college students now. We're not just high school students anymore. They included topics like how college is different from high school, the transition and success that they made. They told their own personal stories, which were really powerful. They shared their successes. Some of them had made mistakes, and they also told the students how they recovered from those mistakes, what they did to get back on track. They talked about involvement and work and sports and how to manage their time with all those things. in addition to, how to study now that it was college. And also they talked about making relationships with professors, how it's different than being in a high school class and seeing your high school teacher every day. So those were basically the topics that the students covered with the College Readiness Now students. Then we also had a complimentary panel of advisors. We brought in, the following week, our first-year experience advisor and our EOF advisor to both the high schools. And so they took the college, just language of success, kind of, in the same way, but in a different way, because they're advisors. And their topics included a lot about the support and the services that students can get at Raritan, talking about scheduling and orientation and all those things you would have to do as a college student. They talked about the difference, again, between high school and college, connections that you would have to make in college, building relationships, habits that you need to form, new friends that you may need to hang around with if you're going to be a successful college student, and also the strong foundation that you would have to start out with, and the plan that you would need to make for success. And they fleshed all that out for the students. And one of those advisors was actually an alum also. So again, it was that connection. Some of the students had known him as well. And afterward, the students had a chance to talk personally. One of the students from one of the high schools, you could see the light bulb go off, like, I didn't think I could do college. But the things that they were talking about, financial aid opportunities, she went right up to the EOF advisor, and I think she was in his office the next day at the college. And the students also talked to the other students on the student panel. And the comments that we got on the forms, the evaluation forms, were all very positive. So that's what we did.
Thank you. So a little bit more from the students in their own words. They told me that they wanted to know the feeling of college. They explained that it's way different than high school, and it's more independent. And they said the college instructor helped you expand your thinking. And I heard that over and over again. They felt very positively about the interactions that they had with their instructors this summer. And they felt like those instructors pushed them to think beyond and to think in ways that they hadn't been thinking. And for those who were juniors, they were really excited to go back to high school and take that knowledge and be new kinds of students in their senior year in high school. So one of the challenges that many of you spoke with me about was program recruitment. And I know in part some of you struggled because it was a little bit last minute, but there were also other challenges. And so we wanted to share with you, first of all, how students predominantly learned about the program. And what we found is that 64% of the respondents, the survey respondents, indicated that they learned of the program from their school counselor. And I know many of you reached out to school counselors to coordinate this past year. Interestingly, only 2% reported that they learned about the program from a parent or a caregiver, 5% from a friend, and 5% from a teacher, and 8% from a friend. So it was really overwhelmingly the school counselors who played an important role in this process. I also heard that recruitment intensity varied significantly between programs. Some of you, and you know who you are, some of you called the students non-stop to ensure that you had students in that seat. And some of you are laughing right now, and you're recalling our conversations. But you know what? You were successful in getting those students there and then keeping them there. Others of you let the high schools work through that process, and took some other approaches. And I think it's just important to hear that difference in intensity. I'm going to have a promising practice for you in a moment, but I also want to convey that despite the intensity, the message was overwhelmingly consistent. The students knew that the program was going to help them prepare for college. And that's really important because they all knew why they were there and what the goal was, which helps them hopefully achieve that goal. You should also know that some of you put into your recruitment efforts the idea of saving money, and that resonated with the students. The students spoke to me about the idea of really knowing that this would mean one less class or two less classes that they would have to take. They translated it into real dollars. And if you struggled with recruitment and didn't highlight this aspect, I would encourage you to do so because it seems that it really did make an impact on the students and their parents through the students' words. So I mentioned a promising practice in terms of recruitment. I'm going to ask Arthur Taylor from Essex County College to speak about his experiences and his successes with recruitment.
The wireless mic can only go so far.
I was out of range of the wireless. Good morning, everyone. I'm doing the talking, but before I start, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize, the team that made our program the success it was. The workhorses, of course, are Jerry, Bruno, and Kathy Gutierrez. Please stand, because they did the work, believe me. And of course, the whole Essex support team, our student services, our faculty, our grants people, they were all a part of the effort. But what we found works for us in recruitment is getting to the students early. And the way we do that is that we go into the high schools in as early as 9th grade, but mostly 10th grade, and we test, give them the AccuPlacer test. An entire class, junior class, sophomore class. And then we take those test results and we compile them and give them to the high school principal and let them select the population that they want to get involved in the program. And then we craft the message that goes to that student and the message that goes to that student's parent. We do it with a letter. We write the letter. The high school sends it out. We spend time with the people in the high school telling them what our program is and what kind of students we want to serve to make sure that we get their support in selecting, based on the knowledge they know of their students, selecting the students that they think would most benefit from this kind of program. And it's not necessarily the strong student. It's that student that needs that elevation to the next level to become college driven. We send a letter to the student, welcoming them into the program. We send another letter to the parent, explaining the program. And we explain the economics of it. Recruitment is economics. When you talk to a parent and you explain to them the economic advantage of graduating from a community college and then going to the 4 year of their college, they hear that loud and clear. And that message goes to the student. And that's very, very important. And what we do is we craft a message where we actually pick the colleges that the majority of our students transfer to. And we take it and we use those real examples. If you want to graduate from Fairleigh Dickinson, this is what it's going to cost you for 4 years. If you graduate from Essex after 2 years and then go to Fairleigh Dickinson, you end up in the same place, but you're $60,000 richer. And they hear that message. It's a matter of economics. Then we have, when they get accepted into the program, we send them a nice big letter congratulating them for coming into the program. We have an orientation program where the parents are required to attend. And we find that the more you get the parents involved in the process, the stronger your program is going to be. And that's what we really did. The economic message is an important one, treating the student like they're invited into some special opportunity, making sure you craft your own message that goes to the high schools, to the students and to the parents, and working very closely with the contact people in the high schools that you work for to make sure that the message that they are communicating about your program is the message that you want communicated to your students. And we have found that in our program, we recruited 67 students, 63 of them successfully completed our program. And we think that that was, and all of them showed, reasonable progress. And we're just beginning to get some feedback on the performance of those students in the next level of the course that they took in our Summer Bridge program. And the initial results, although they're not official yet, are very, very encouraging. So we hope that trying to get the right student into your program identified early, getting the parent, to be a part of the effort, working closely with the high school so you're communicating the same message to the student, and you'll find that you'll come up with a population that will be more consistent with what your program is designed to serve, and your outcome of your program will be a lot stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also share that Essex, in speaking with the coordinator in the program there, they also work with the Parent-Teacher-Student Association. And I think that's an important idea, not to overlook, to get on their agenda early and to make sure that they know about this opportunity for their students as well. So in addition to recruitment, we heard some other challenges. Transportation. Transportation was an issue regardless of whether the program was located at the high school or at the community college, whether it was in the summer or during the semester. Transportation was an issue. Programs tried various approaches. We have some programs, for example, Cumberland purchased bus passes and arranged for transportation. But these solutions aren't easily enacted, and they are challenging when trying to scale them. I know another institution coordinated with the school bus during the semester to make arrangements. So we don't have any resolutions there yet, but I do know that was an ongoing concern for you. Meals. I think this is a very important one, especially recognizing that the population of students that this grant is designed to serve are low-income students. Program coordinators and students alike raise the issue to me of meals. If your program spans the morning, over lunch, the issue of meals, the issue of possibly not being able to afford breakfast and or lunch was foremost on both students and coordinators and faculty's minds. And then planning time for the grant, and I think this is one opportunity for this, but the ability to recruit students and schools to participate in the program, I know is a challenge for many of you as you try to make this work and implement it in time, especially for those programs that offered spring programs at the high schools. One of the biggest challenges was the tight timeline in terms of working with the high schools given existing academic constraints. And so you already have some connections and relationships with schools, but I know that keeping that in mind, and certainly I provided that message back to the New Jersey Council of County Colleges and back to the state that this is a concern, and I know that you want to make sure that you implement the best program possible and reach the maximum number of students, and that's exactly why the planning time is important. So a few recommendations. Program structure. One of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to move towards a more consistent model, but not require that you follow a single model. So we're offering three this year as an approach. One is a short, intensive, maybe 1 week computer-based instruction model with instructor support. The second is a semester-based model that is incorporated into the student's school day. And then the third is a 5-week summer bridge model with course meetings Monday through Thursday that's based on a traditional college developmental course. Most of your programs fell into one of these three already, but we are trying to get to reduce the amount of variation we have across 19 colleges in this year 2 of implementation. We also want to encourage you that regardless of the model that you choose to move forward with, that you should offer some form of college experience and information, whether it's through workshops or through a college success course, a full course. That information has been so important to the students, and the evaluation suggests that that is a place where we could be much more consistent across the state. So that idea of college exposure, I'm drawing upon research that's been done in part by CCRC, is the idea that students can benefit from experiencing that college environment and college expectations, because what it does is it enables them to imagine themselves in the role of a college student. And so it's not just one approach. You can take many approaches. Some things that we take for granted, I know I take for granted now, the idea of a syllabus. High school students aren't accustomed to receiving a syllabus. So that in and of itself, the idea that they know how the whole semester progresses and what's due when, puts a level of accountability on them that some students said that they really appreciated. The freedoms and related expectations of college classes. There's a lot that comes with a college class, a lot of freedom, but therefore, as you all know, that they have to take responsibility for, completing assignments, managing their own time, managing their workload. And these were things, though, that the students identified themselves. If you are not locating your program at a college, consider visiting a college or a few. That opportunity for students to see college campuses, to actually physically see what they're like, and again, to imagine themselves in the role of a college student is so important. And then a final option, of course, is a full college success course that many of your colleges already offer to incoming students. So consider ways of adapting a course like that to that population that you're working with. Recommendations in terms of students, continuing to focus efforts on juniors and seniors. It was interesting, I did hear from a few students who said, I wish I'd had this really early, like as a freshman, as a high school freshman. And others said, well, but it wouldn't have mattered as much to me. It wouldn't have made as much a difference. I wouldn't have known that it was important. So I think there is a balance to be struck. Certainly outreach early for knowledge, but for this program, consider focusing on the juniors and the seniors. The students, the program coordinators, and instructors all emphasize that it's better to know as soon as possible if they're not going to be college ready. And so I think that the programs where AccuPlacer is being offered in the junior year or even the sophomore year are opportunities for students to be confronted with that knowledge and to have the opportunity to resolve that. Right? So these two quotes are quotations from students. Earlier is better, so you'll know to ask for help. Doing it earlier means you can use those skills and adapt. And then one student who said, I can't wait for school to start to show my teachers and friends how much I learned. That student is so excited to go back to high school and be a different student in that senior year. And I think that's an opportunity for many of our students. So I wanted to end with some other quotations from students so that we all hear their experiences of the program. And I'll say that overwhelmingly, students were so excited about the program and so positive about the experience they had. And that was true across the colleges. So students said to me, the program is helping kids who know they're struggling. So they know they have difficulty. And they know that this program is designed to help them. They say, I used to be terrified of going to college, but now I'm not. The summer program was a wake-up call. One student said that I need to be more responsible. And then in the same vein, the program gets you rolling. It helps your work ethic. And so I think these are certainly promising from the perspective of students who have realized something about themselves and their ability to change and have an influence on their future, their academic future. Thank you.
At this moment in time, we can take a few questions from the audience for Dr. Kerrigan or for some other program coordinators. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you. Okay. First question from Amy at Mercer.
Hi, I'm really surprised by the 1 week model. I'd love to know more about how much can be accomplished in a week.
Sure.
And
Yeah, the academic in me wasn't sure to put that on this presentation, not as a dismissive remark to Atlantic Cape, but really as a, don't we all want our students to be immersed in a semester-long experience? And but and I was actually Elizabeth Barnett and I were talking about this on the drive over from the train this morning, and she's going to pick up on it in terms of some national research, and I think that's really important to contextualize what we know about college outcomes for students who participate in a transition program. And what we know right now is there doesn't seem to be much impact. And so the question is, how do we work to reach the most number of students in a way that's scalable and in a way that has an ultimate impact? So I know, Dr. Yanuzzi was talking earlier about the idea of we used to be all about access and now we're about success. Well, if we can't have success without access. So if we start from the perspective of how do we get the most number of students successfully into college-ready courses, what I'm suggesting is we need to consider the idea that some of these short intensive programs may do enough for a group of students who are almost college-ready in terms of pushing them into being college-ready in that particular subject. So in this case, it was math. Does that mean that they don't need this college knowledge that we've been talking about? Does that mean that they don't need further support? Absolutely not. But as we start to break down what are our opportunities for helping students, helping large numbers of students, and moving towards that ultimate goal of not just getting them into our colleges and getting them college ready, but getting them out on the back end, I think we need to explore a variety of options, and that includes this sort of short intensive opportunity. Yeah.
Dr. Kerrigan,
Yeah.
We do have representatives from Atlantic
Yeah,
Cape
we
Community
do.
College here who would be able to speak to their program.
Sure.
We took students who missed college ready by 15 points on the AccuPlacer, and those were the students placed into the course. It was a 4-day course. We had a teacher in the room, faculty, full-time faculty, with a student tutor, and they walked around and helped the students with it. And some students did take 5 days. We gave them the 5th day. We were 90% successful, and we're going to look at how they're doing in their college classes in a couple weeks. We got 128 students through 90%, so we did pretty good. But they were almost college ready. They weren't the lower scorers. Any other questions?
You said this is for math only?
Yes, we just did math.
So when they scored 15 points in math, with basic math, algebra.
76 is the cutoff for the state, and they were within 15 points of that 76. Yes.
And then how long was your, you said it was 4 days?
4 days, 9 to 1. They worked 9 to 1 in the classroom, and then they could do it online at home.
And then what was it?
They worked online at home.
Thank you.
They took a diagnostic. We use My Foundations Lab. So they have a starting diagnostic, which eliminates topics for them that they've already mastered, and they just work through what they didn't know when they took the diagnostic. And they had to pass a post-test at a 70% mark for each topic. No, My Foundations Lab. Atlantic Cape has the opinion that Accuplacer is not content aligned, so we didn't use that as a second measure, just a first measure.
James, James had a question. Is it related? No. Okay, so if there's any other questions related to Atlantic Cape.
24 students per class.
And there was another tab?
They were all seniors. Yes.
It was done over the summer.
What did we have, 8 sections or 6? No, I think we did have 8. We had 8 sections, and it ran for 3 different weeks.
Any other questions for Atlantic Cape? Okay, I'm going to pass. Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to pass the microphone to James.
Amongst our team here at Brookdale, we had a little bit of concern over the grant language. Some people in the group felt that we should really be pushing the affective college experience, whereas some of us felt that the language was kind of restrictive in it being more about having to be about the academic piece. So is it official? Because I think all of us agree that we need the affective component, but some of us were concerned based on the language of the grant. So going into this next year, can we officially say that that is part, maybe I read the grant wrong, but that we can focus a good bit on the affective aspect of becoming a college student?
You know, I don't know that I want to say one way or the other since I'm not part of the grant administration, but I think we could certainly make sure to clarify that for everyone. All right, why don't we do that? I think, you know, what the evaluation is suggesting that, and my instinct is that's sort of what you're saying, is that it's important. Both are important. You know, that it's difficult to do one without the other, but that there's an opportunity there. So I'll leave that to the New Jersey Council of County Colleges to provide you definitive decision on. Yep.
And it's noted. Thank you. Another question? Dr. Chang in the back? Let's see if it works. It might cut out for you.
Thanks for the presentation, actually. My name is Yuna Chang, actually. I'm from Mercer. You had a great summary about what we have done in New Jersey, but we are not, community colleges are not the only sector actually who are dealing with this issue. For your institution, absolutely, many institutions. Is there anything that we are not addressing at the community colleges at the moment? Is there any particular programs that have been very successful at the four-year university sector?
So I have some anecdotal knowledge. I have not studied this issue at the four-year sector. I don't know, the 2 researchers you've got here this morning are community college focused, for better or for worse, for this group. But I think, you're right that, this is a problem that is of concern to all post-secondary sectors, I think in terms of opportunities to learn, I think we should look. But this is also an area where community colleges are taking the lead. A lot of the leading work and a lot of the research that's being done on outcomes around the ideas of student success is coming out of the community college sector. So it's a place where we can sort of toot our own horn. But sadly, I don't think that answers your question definitively.
And if I might add, I was privileged enough to sit in the student focus groups with Dr. Kerrigan, and one of the things that I found most interesting, a number of the students at 5 different colleges would share that, well, I didn't know that I was going to go to a community college, but I really wanted to go to a 4-year, but now having been here, they've been exposed to your campus, they're exposed to your faculty, they want to go to your college. So in a lot of ways, this program might even help with enrollment across the board. So it's another benefit to having this college readiness transition program. Any other questions? We can maybe take one or two more questions. Dr. Elizabeth Barnett is a Senior Research Associate at the Community College Research Center at Teachers College, Columbia University, and also serves as the Associate Director of the National Center for Education, Schools and Teaching at Teachers College. She is a Project Director for a research initiative entitled Reshaping the College Transition that looks at early college readiness assessments and 12th grade transition curricula that prepare students for college-level math and English coursework. She also leads a study entitled Research on Alternative Placement Systems, exploring the use of multiple measures for placement of students in college-level math and English. Dr. Barnett's research interests relate to high school and college transition, community colleges, developmental education, early and middle college high schools, access to college, workforce education, and international education. Dr. Barnett received her PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in Educational Organization and Leadership with a focus on higher education. She also has a bachelor's and master's degrees from the School of International Training and from the University of Texas at Austin. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Barnett.
Thank you, Lou, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be in a room like this where there's so much energy. I think, oftentimes what we take away from these experiences is more about what we learn from each other than from anybody who's speaking up here. So, yeah, I encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. It's also great for me. I learn so much from hearing about the kinds of programs that are going on around the country. I'm excited to share some of the things that we've learned in some of the research projects I've been involved in. And, I think there's some definite overlap between what you're doing and some of the projects we've been involved with. So, glad to be here with you today. And I should just mention, it is an exciting day with President Obama's announcement. One thing I noticed is that a couple of times, it's mainly about paying for college, but a couple of times in there, there's talk about a focus on making sure that students are prepared for college and how colleges can work with high schools to make sure that happens more effectively. So, I think we ought to keep kind of paying attention to those things and opportunities to advance this work as those conversations go forward. So today what I want to talk about, I want to spend just a couple of minutes on an overview of the state of college readiness. I think it's information we all know pretty much. I'm going to talk about 3 interventions that I've done research on along with a team, or a couple of different teams at Teachers College, summer Brooch programs. The second is early college readiness assessments, and the third are what we're calling transition courses. And then at the end, I want to spend a little time talking about design decisions and trade-offs, and I'm actually going to ask for your help at a certain point in the conversation as well. You may notice there's some index cards on the tables that we'll pull out at some point. So, students not ready for college. This is the NCES data from 2013. 68% of students entering community colleges not ready. Some of those are not recent high school graduates, but a lot of them are. And as somebody mentioned, this isn't a problem that's unique to community colleges. Open access 4 years, 40% of students come in needing some kind of remedial education. And as Monica pointed out, it's really, it is the community colleges that are most actively trying to address this situation. We have a few examples that I run into from four-year colleges, but not too many. So the reason this is an issue, students needing remediation are less likely to graduate from college. There's a big surprise here. Community college graduation rates are pretty low anyway, and something that everybody's working on. But you can see that there's a big difference between students who come in needing remediation and those who don't. So why are recent high school graduates often underprepared for college? Well, there are some issues with lack of preparation, but I thought the gentleman who's superintendent put it very well, that up until recently there wasn't a lot of communication about what college people wanted their incoming students to know and be able to do. And I'm really heartened to hear that there's a lot more of that kind of communication going on in New Jersey, and I think that's happening to some degree around the country too. And then the issue of college knowledge is something that clearly you all are talking about quite a lot too. And by that I mean mainly understanding how you navigate that transition to college so that you understand, you know, what colleges might make sense for you, what the money is likely to be about, you know, how you apply financially. Once you get to college, how you navigate systems there, you know, how you work with faculty, pick courses, all those things. So we'll look at 3 different models that have been used to help students as they try to better navigate this transition. And the first research I'm going to talk about came out of the National Center for Post-Secondary Research, which was a national center funded by the federal government, CCRC, MDRC, and other research organizations, the University of Virginia were partners in that center. It started now 7 years ago and wrapped up about 2 years ago, but there were a number of projects done under it. And one of the major projects was an examination of what were called developmental summer bridge programs in Texas. And these look a lot like one of the 3 models that you all are talking about using, a 5-week, essentially 5-week summer bridge program held during the summer, and promoted and partially funded by the state. So the state of Texas wanted to do more in this area. They wanted to make funds available for summer bridges, and they had some pretty firm ideas about what kinds of designs they thought were effective based in the available research, which, you know, was not a whole lot, but they had some, you know, they were fairly prescriptive in what they asked people to do in these summer bridges. So participating students had just completed high school, and they were all identified in high school as not college ready, usually by having taken a college placement test while they were still in high school. So the research involved 3 sections. One was an implementation study, so we went out during the summer in Texas in summer of 2009, pretty hot, and visited these 8 colleges that were involved and tried to learn as much as we could about how they were implementing the programs. We actually went a number of times in the process of setting up the study, but that was kind of our official implementation research. We did a random assignment study, so we worked with colleges to recruit very heavily to make sure that there was a lot of interest in the programs. Each college decided up front how many students they could serve effectively. A lottery system was used to pick the students who would actually be able to enter the program, the summer bridge program. And those were our program students, and the students who weren't selected were told about other opportunities, but they became our comparison group. So I think many of you know that model of research, the random assignment design, allows you to rule out other explanations for why when you get results. So the students, and I think you are probably pretty tuned into this, the students who sign up for summer bridges are not always your average students. They're going to be motivated enough to spend a good amount of time during their summer doing a program like this, right? So if you're going to really look at effectiveness, you have to say, you have to look at students who are extremely similar. So the random assignment design allowed us to do that. The other thing we did is we did a cost study, because one of the things we wanted to see is how replicable this is, and whether it would be something that people could scale up. So these programs that we looked at, recent high school graduates, 4 to 5 weeks in each program, they have offered accelerated instruction, so students meeting basically every day for at least half a day, and focusing on math, English, and or reading, so there are different combinations. Everybody received academic and social supports. I'll talk about what those were. There was a college knowledge component, and students were offered a $400 stipend. So the idea with this is that it would be different. It would be making these programs more attractive to particularly low-income students who might be wanting to work over the summer to earn money for college. It also would be part of the trying to make sure that students stay through the program, stay completed. So this is what we got. In total, we served they served 800 students. There were 533 in the control group. Not every student who was selected started the program, so 691 started. But of those students who started, almost everybody finished, 95% finished. Okay? And I think that was a combination of strong programs and the stipend. So they wouldn't get the full stipend unless they didn't do the program. So colleges made their determination about what they wanted to offer, within the parameters that I talked about. 3 offered math onlys, the others offered some combination. Regular college faculty were teaching the program. They were all located on college campuses. Generally, they based the curriculum on the developmental education courses from the college. And in some cases, students were all in there together, no matter what their developmental need might be, and in some cases they were split out according to students who were closer to college readiness or further away. Student supports, you guys talked about, or Monica talked about some of the ones you're using. The most common student supports offered in these colleges was tutoring. There were a number of different tutoring programs, and there was a lot of mentoring. And that was usually college students who were brought in to interact with the students in the program in different ways. Sometimes that was fairly loose, and in other cases it was highly structured, with a curriculum for the mentors and that kind of thing. But all of them had fairly intensive student supports. Several of them offered abbreviated student success courses, others offered presentations, covering the kinds of topics one might expect. Okay, so the impact findings. Essentially, all of these programs moved the needle, in terms of students learning more. So, I think that's what you found too, is that, students learn more, and it made advancement in their math and English. But what we were really trying to figure out was what kind of impact that had on their college trajectory after they finished these programs. So they finished everybody participated in the summer of 2009, went on to college fall of 2009 and thereafter, and some didn't start right away and so on. And we followed them for 2 years. So the findings were, we were using some kind of outcomes that looking back on it were kind of a reach, but what we found is that, students in the program were no more likely to persist in college. We didn't see any impact on that. And they were no more likely to gain additional college credits. And one thing we had thought is, okay, if they start college ready, perhaps they'll actually accumulate more college credit over time. Over a 2-year period, that didn't happen. What did happen is that these programs accelerated students' progress through the gatekeeper courses, through the college gatekeeper courses in math and writing. So more detail. So here's students passing college level math by semester. What you'll see is during the fall semester, you actually had about double the number of students who had passed a college math course. Still, relatively small percentage overall. By the spring 2010, 32% of program students who had been in the bridge, had passed their college level math, and as opposed to 23% of the control students, right? So we see some solid differences there, and those persist. You'll see that, each semester, those differences persist. So those students who were in those summer bridges got a bump. They got the opportunity to move ahead in math. There were fewer students in writing programs, and this is actually looking at percentages for the whole population, right? Not just those who actually took a writing course. And there we also see differences. So, students who were in summer bridges were more likely than control group students, comparison group students, to pass a college level writing course, generally a Comp 101. It might be a little different in each college. So again, we were pleased to see that there was some difference there. There was, and that persisted, over the 2 years of the study. Any questions about the data that I'm showing here? Is that making sense to you? Okay. And then as I I mentioned, we looked at costs. So, you know, they did have some grant funds, and, you know, sometimes, you know, you add program features based on the money you have available and so on. People had somewhat different amounts of money available to them, but the costs range from, you know, $62,000 to about $296,000 for college over that one summer. And the average costs, and I took the stipend out of this because I thought it would be more meaningful. The average costs were from $440 to $1,949, right? With an average of $919. Okay. So on the one hand, we have, you know, some benefits to students. On the other hand, we have, you know, about $900 being spent on each student. I wanted to ask you to just take a minute and talk with somebody, the person next to you. Does that trade-off, how does that trade-off appear to you? Does it seem like a reasonable balance? Did the costs and the benefits seem to be in the right relationship here? So let me just give you like 3 minutes to talk about that.
What we're discussing over here was that we've all heard that students who start college level courses are more likely to achieve their degree and be successful in college. But your data seem to indicate for this subset that that is not the case. I wonder if you could talk to that for a minute.
They were more likely, right?
Less likely to have any differences in their long-term outcomes. They're achieving.
Oh, yeah, nope, yeah. I think you exactly got my message. So I think we could talk about what that means, but to me what it means is one summer bridge program by itself isn't enough, that there has to be some kind of ongoing support.
Well, my follow-up question would be, why is this subset of students who took a summer bridge program who are entering college-level credit courses different than the data that we've heard outside of this study, that students who start in college credit level courses are more likely to have long-term success?
I think they are more likely to, but they're still, by itself, it's not enough, right? If we go back to that first slide I showed, even the students who started in college level courses, their graduation rate was not fantastic. You want to take a look at that?
No one needs to remind us that our graduation rates aren't fantastic. But I'm just trying to, we're all working on the different placement measures and everything to get students accelerated and into college level courses, including the bridge program being one of them. But it sounds like that, that we need to focus on the other methods to get students into college level credit bearing courses other than bridge programs, because the bridge program is not one of the effective means of doing that.
Okay,
To
so
achieve long-term success.
that's not what I mean to say. I think what we're seeing here is that bridge programs help students to be college ready, right? So they're walking in the door, they're more likely to be able to take college level courses, right? But we know that even students who walk in college ready face a bunch of challenges. Bridge programs aren't addressing all of those, right? They're helping on some of them, and the same is true, we'll see in the transition courses. They're giving students some extra tools and skills, but it's going to take a lot more than that, I think, to get students to the point where they're actually succeeding as much as we know.
Yeah, I'm still not clear on it, but certainly there's a lot to think about.
So students in bridge programs do better than the students that, totally similar students who don't take bridge programs, right? They're more likely to place at the college level, but by the time you look at them 2 years later, their outcomes are not particularly different, right? So we're giving them a better start, but we've got to keep them moving along, right? So I think that's what I would say to myself. Any other thoughts based on that conversation?
I think what would help to understand this a little bit more is, are they actually taking more credits? Even though they're starting at college level, are they overall, across the life of their career, are they taking more college credits?
No.
No.
So that was one of our findings. They, by the time, essentially it made no difference in terms of numbers of college credits accumulated. If anybody, the reports are online, and if anybody wants to dig into that, I would very much encourage you to, and feel free to contact me if you'd like to discuss it, make sure that, if you want to talk more about the applications to your college. Okay.
So, Doctor, did you look at what the programs that the students were taking? Because if you're looking at just like the college credit difference for kids that are struggling in math, they're probably not going to be entering majors that are math heavy, and that could be sort of a problem with it, not a problem with the data, but something to look at for further study. Because if you have a child who's not college ready, they're going to take a remedial math course, which is 3 credits, and then they're going to take their 1 college math course they may need for their major, that's a non-math major, so you're only going to be looking at 3 credits.
Well, we were looking at credits overall, so those probably do wash out.
Yeah, so the further you would go, they're only, so they're remedial in math, and they're only going to need 1 college level math course for their major.
Right, right.
You'd have the 3 college credits that they would take for a remedial course, or maybe 6 if they're really far behind.
Yep.
So that difference, once they got that would be really it. Would that just be the difference you're looking at?
So
maybe that could help explain why.
I think it does help explain. Yeah.
Longer term, that there's not going to be that much of a difference.
Yeah.
I don't just.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. So the only real potential increase could be as little as like 1 course. So that kind of washes out
when they got college ready to get that 1 course, who got it sooner? Maybe.
Yeah. But I don't mean for the message to be that rich programs don't have an effect, because they do. I mean, what we see is, especially in especially in math, you do see students who have taken the bridge courses doing better. Having been more likely to pass those college level courses. But clearly there's more work to do, right? It's not, you still, by the end of the spring of 2011, you only have 46% pass that college level math for whatever reason. Some of them may have dropped out. Okay. So I guess we came out of this project, our basic conclusion was that well-designed summer bridge programs could have an impact, but they're also difficult to run, they're somewhat expensive, and they're not easy to scale. The issues that you talked about with recruitment, that Dr. Kerrigan talked about with recruitment, we saw those in Texas too. It took a lot of effort to get those students into those courses, right? And you often wouldn't get wide swaths of students that needed to be there. So one of the things we ran into, we had the opportunity to look at other kinds of college readiness initiatives while we were in Texas. And one that we ran into was one being done by Lone Star College with the Aldine School District. But what they were essentially doing is offering developmental education courses in the senior year. And we thought, oh, okay, those look a lot like bridge programs. They're being offered during the regular high school year. Let's find out more about these things, okay? The high school is offering it. It was the college's curriculum. College faculty went into the program, into the courses periodically to give students more information about what college math expected, what college English expected, and those kinds of things. So Community College Research Center. So no longer under the auspices of the National Center. Our center got some funding from the Gates Foundation as part of a larger suite of projects to look at issues related to remedial developmental education. And we proposed one project to look specifically at early college readiness assessments and transition courses. Early college readiness assessments, by those we meant assessments administered no later than 11th grade, measuring students' readiness to perform college-level work. Transition curricula, courses, learning modules, online tutorials developed jointly by secondary and post-secondary faculty, offered no later than 12th grade to students at risk of being placed into remedial math or English. And what we were, when we looked at transition curricula, we were especially interested, partly because of this summer bridge experience, in looking at courses that were offered as part of the regular high school day. So while we were paying attention to the whole range, we were focusing in much more on those. So why early college readiness assessments? It sounds like this is something that's already going on in New Jersey pretty regularly. Knowledge is power. You know, if students know where they are in relation to college expectations, they can take action. If schools know where students are in relation to college expectations, they can take actions to make sure that students have opportunities to get ready. Evidence, we actually do have some rigorous evidence that this is an effective practice. A study was done in California of their early assessment program. That's the California state test administered in the 11th grade. And they've added some items to it that were proposed by the college system, the California State University system, that in combination with the existing items would show whether students were college ready. And they basically come out as college ready, conditionally ready, or not ready. And they got this information, you know, students were getting this information. So researchers looked at I won't go into the design, but basically what they found is students, just by virtue of having that information alone, were less likely to place into remedial education. So that's, you know, a practice that I think we can say, you know, has pretty good bang for the buck. I mean, it's, you know, being able to inform students and schools of students' readiness is important. And then transition courses. So the theory of full year course in math or English could be offered to students. You know, an extensive amount of time covering the math and English that they need for college at no extra cost, so potentially highly scalable. Offering high school credit, so there's no need to convince students to be in these courses because it's going to be their senior math or senior English. And meeting college's criteria for college readiness. So that's what we hope to find, you know, when we went out looking for transition courses or courses that met that kind of criteria. So at this point, these are fairly new, and there really isn't any rigorous research available yet on whether they're effective or not. There are currently about 5 studies going on, and one thing we want to do is get people together in the spring who are involved in these studies to look at the outcomes and be able to understand whether, you know, these are effective practices, and if so, what kinds of design features would make them effective. So our research agenda, in our project, we're working for 3 years. The first thing we did is we wanted to go out and just see who's doing this stuff. So we did a scan of 50 states. We first surveyed online and then called up people who didn't answer and just wanted to find out, you know, do you offer early college readiness assessments? Do you offer transition curricula? And if so, is it a statewide initiative or a local initiative? We put together a brief on that. That's available on our website. The second thing we did is we picked 4 states, and we picked states where there was some kind of a statewide effort, and there was what appeared to be real involvement by both K-12 and higher education. So New York, California, West Virginia, and Tennessee, 4 places that we've been working. We've done a report on that, and I'll share some of the findings from that in this presentation. The next thing we did is we went out and visited schools, so we went to at least 4 schools in every state. We're currently writing a report on what we saw in terms of the different implementation approaches, and one of the things we want to come out with as part of that is kind of a tool that you can use in making design decisions in terms of some of the trade-offs involved in designing these programs. And then student outcomes. Right now we're in the process of examining outcomes in New York and in West Virginia to see whether students do better in college if they participate in these programs. So the 50-state scan, this is already out of date. This was done in 2012, and I was just looking at New Jersey, and at that point there was no statewide initiative in either of these areas. So they go into the, New Jersey is under the local column there. But you know, what we found is that at that time, about half the states had some kind of statewide system for looking at students' college readiness, and that was usually the whatever the 11th grade assessment was. They had some kind of college readiness benchmark, and then there were 13 states with local initiatives. As far as transition curricula, there were only 8 states at that point that had a statewide initiative, but there was a lot of bubbling, so there were 21 states that had local initiatives. So we, you know, as I mentioned, we did more in-depth research in certain states, and what we ended up looking at were 5 states. I'll just mention we did some prior research on Virginia. I'm not going to go into that here, but 5 that offered these full-year courses in math or English. 1 that offered an enhanced course. New York State or the New York City schools, part of the curriculum is a counseling curriculum. So the counselor comes in 1 day a week and spends time with students talking about college knowledge. And then 1 blended course that involved mainly online learning. So let me tell you a little bit about these, the 4 states where we've been doing this more recent study. So New York State, you know, they have the Regents test, they have college readiness benchmarks on the regions. The CUNY, City University of New York, decided to put together a program that would be available to high schools in New York City, and is more recently being scaled up statewide, where there's a process for a statewide scale-up going on. But the courses they developed were, the one in English, what they were trying to do is make sure that students were exposed to college-level reading and writing, but with actual college content. So they developed a course that has both, that focuses the first semester on psychology and the second semester on sociology. And, you know, involve students in you know, a lot of reading and writing assignments and so on, and college skills like annotation and bibliography development and so on. The math was more explicitly tied to the college placement test, so it was making sure that students had the math skills needed to be able to pass, you know, into college-ready courses. And part of the program is all the students go to the college twice during the course of the year for testing. So they're, you know, getting that immediate feedback on how they're doing in terms of college readiness, and they're also hanging out at the college. So they're over there and they're in the cafeteria and getting the experience of being on campus, at least, you know, for a short period of time. So in West Virginia, the Southern Region Educational Board has been very active in this area, convinced the legislature to pass legislation requiring transition courses throughout the state. This was about 4 years ago, and the West Test 2 was their state assessment. They, you know, kind of came up with college readiness benchmarks on those. The math course, they decided both the math and the English course were developed by teams of K-12 teachers and college faculty working together. And it was done at the state level. They developed these courses and they put them online. And, you know, basically the courses and related material are at the Teach 21 website. So if anybody wants to look West Virginia Teach 21, there's a whole lot of materials there that are available to anybody who wants to use them. Teachers weren't mandated to follow those exactly, but you know, there's a lot of resources there available. There's no external textbook. The course for math was for anybody below the cutoff. So one thing we found is you got students at a lot of different levels in those courses. That sometimes posed a challenge. For the English, they decided to go for the students right around the cutoff. And I noticed that that's something that you guys are thinking that you wanted to hear. Students take the compass at the conclusion of the course, but that compass score doesn't necessarily get to the college. That's up to the student to get there. So some of those students may pass the compass and, you know, never necessarily makes its way to the college. So Tennessee is kind of interesting. They decided to work just in math. they decided to require senior math for every student, and they wanted to make sure there was a course available for students who in the past wouldn't have taken math, essentially, the lowest level math students. So they developed a bridged course, and it was pegged to the college's, the statewide developmental education standards. So that they as a state have common developmental education standards. They developed a course, they started implementing it. It was going reasonably well, but then Chattanooga State decided they wanted to use a system they developed for their own college, which was all online, developmental education modules. They got 5 modules. If you get through all 5 modules, you're ready for college level. So they started offering those modules at a local high school, and people were really into it. And they started getting really good results, and students who passed those modules were immediately out of at least that level of developmental education when they got to college. So, even if you passed 4 out of 5, if you went to the college, you'd finish that last module, you'd be finished. So the governor saw this and decided this was a really good idea and gave Chattanooga State a whole bunch of money, and they're scaling up this sales approach throughout the country, essentially. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that we're just kind of, what we observed is that we went to the high school classrooms and students seemed pretty into this. I mean, they were in organized classrooms with teachers. They liked to be able to move at their own pace, and they liked interacting, with the online materials and so on. From what we heard, that was much more the case than at the college, where students were working more independently. So we actually have some questions about how online education is structured and the extent to which those kinds of supports and structures can make it more effective. So right now they're scaling this up like crazy statewide in Tennessee. And the last one is, I mentioned the early assessment program in California. The California State University system developed an English course called Expository Reading and Writing that's not used throughout the state, but it's available to districts throughout the state. And it's been going for about 10 years. They just finished a rigorous study. They're seeing some initial positive outcomes, although the results haven't been officially released. And one of the things they try to do, and a number of the English courses we're trying to do, is to incorporate as part of the interest in nonfiction reading, trying to incorporate a lot of social issues and kind of current issues and issues kids were interested in. So, they had a unit on bullying, they had a unit on food choices, they had, a number of different topics that would lend themselves to debates and interaction and argumentation and so on. One thing I haven't mentioned is that this course and a number of them are paying a lot of attention to the Common Core. So on the one hand, they're trying to make sure they stay true to college readiness as defined by the college, but they've also got this Common Core set of standards about, saying what college readiness is, which aren't always totally lined up, right? So people are trying to kind of work back and forth across those. That's one of the interesting issues. The other resource I wanted to point out is, I mentioned the Southern Region Education Board. They also developed a curriculum. They've got what they call Math Ready. And has anybody heard of these Math Ready Literacy Ready? Yeah. So these are also available online for free, and take a look at them. I don't know that much about them. So any questions? Well, yeah.
Sorry, it's a big room. I want to make sure everyone hears the question. Thank you, Dr. Mulaney.
A couple times you mentioned the college knowledge component.
Yeah.
Can you, I'm wondering, is that clearly defined? I mean, I'm wondering if it's, on one hand, sort of how to navigate registration, financial aid. On the other hand, is it also sort of time management, study skills? And, are colleges finding it more successful to embed those into existing courses or having a separate student success course that addresses those things?
That's a really good question. I think people use the term in lots of different ways. I personally kind of like David Conley's work. He's divided college readiness into 4 major categories. When he talks about college knowledge, he's talking about those transition skills, those navigating college. I think all those time management and things that typically fit into student success courses, I think that those are absolutely critical as well, and probably worth giving attention, paying separate attention to. One thing that I think you all are doing that we haven't seen much in the places that we've been to is being explicit about incorporating some kind of college success experience, a course or sub-course or something like that. Of the places we went to, only New York was doing that, in a fairly explicit way. And actually, mainly what New York was doing was more the college knowledge part than the time management and the study skills and so on.
Hi, Dr. Barnett. I was wondering in your research if you have come across any scenarios where they've included ESL students, or if there are any specific programs to get ESL students college ready?
The work in Texas was almost all, or the vast majority of students were Latino students, but they were all the courses that all the bridges we observed were in English, so they weren't explicitly ESL students at all. And I'm not aware of programs for that. I don't know if anybody else is. I'm not aware of separate transition courses or bridges for ESL.
We need them.
Yeah.
If I might, a question that's fair in that it's premature probably, but to you and to Monica both, and just to recap quickly how we got to here today. Monica touched on all this, just to quickly review. With Secretary Rochelle Hendricks' support, folks quickly geared up to accommodate this round one. We expect word soon on funding for round two. It was by design in round one that we wanted to be absolutely flexible, letting each college find its comfort zone as to what worked best locally. We are now better informed about round one based on Monica's work. And as Monica said in a couple of her last slides, we're not going to be promoting one size fits all, but we are going to try to bring focus to round two, to things we learned about from round one. And Monica, help me remember your concluding slide that you suggested 3 promising models. Go ahead.
Oh dear. Now I have to remember. The short intensive course, a semester-long traditional high school embedded course, and then a third summer transition course, 5 weeks.
So with those 3 in mind, Elizabeth, and now here's the unfair question that's premature probably, but I like our opportunity to have synergy between the 2 of you to our benefit. If you were to think about filtering through the national look-see that you've done, Monica's preliminary recommendation for us to keep in mind on round 2, what wisdom of that kind could you bring even early on here? As I say, it's an unfair question, it's premature, but I think we would be well served by Monica's evaluation being filtered through your more national look-see to help guide us in round 2, which we hope to have word on very soon.
Well, what researchers always say is we don't have enough evidence, and that's kind of true. But I think, so this, as we're thinking about design decisions for round 2, I mean, that's kind of where I was thinking about going next. I think we have at least some evidence that could inform these decisions. I mean, we know a fair amount about summer bridges from our research, and there's some other studies. We know, as far as those go, that they're effective and somewhat costly. So the cost benefit is what has to be weighed there. With the short courses, we know that there are colleges that are doing similar work, and I don't know the studies, but they're calling them boot camps usually, and it's designed for students who come to the college. Many of them are testing for the first time, not having taken math for a year or so. And it sounds like the experience here and other places has been that for a group of students, that could be an effective approach. I mean, I think we also know from education research generally that time on task is really important. So, if you've got students who are not those, not real close, 4 days is not too much, right? So I think you'd have to be very careful in thinking about that. With the transition courses, I tried to share as much as we know right now, which is we think that they are promising, the ones that are embedded into the high school. The main reasons, I think, to be pursuing those pretty actively are that they're very scalable. And we think that they can make a difference in terms of college readiness. So, as a whole state, so far 900 students were served during this past year, and that's pretty remarkable given the short timeline and everything. But if you want to get to somewhere close to all the students who need to be college ready in New Jersey, what can you do? How do you really move that needle given scarce resources? So that's where I think programs embedded in the high school have the potential at least to move the needle.
I think that's helpful. Just a quick follow-up comment. It seems to me, Lou and Secretary Sunday, what we might do well to consider is that when we get word from Secretary Hendricks on round 2, that we would quickly convene conference call perhaps the 19 college leads on the front end and have further conversation. All right, here's the funding for round 2. Let's have a conversation statewide about how we want to break focus, now better informed by Monica's evaluation. And all of this points hopefully to rounds 3, 4, and 5, which gets to your point of scale. Does that make sense? Just thinking out loud about all of you. When we get word, we get you all on the phone so that we know what the funding is and get that kind of synergy across the campuses again as to on the front end as you then make your way around 2. Something to consider, Wayne.
The embedded courses, of course, take considerable negotiation with the folks in K-12. So, it's not like you can just say, we have this program, send your students, right? It's more of it's got to be more of a dialogue and a partnership. And, probably takes longer to scale up. So that's the other thing. I was going to pick your brain, but we're kind of running short on time. Because I'm interested in what kinds of things that you've been grappling with. But let me just end the presentation by just talking about a few of the design decisions that I think are involved. As I mentioned, we're going to be we're in the process of trying to put together a tool that would help people to make some of these. But let me just share a couple of ones that I was thinking about in preparation for this. One is thinking about your partnership. So, as I was just saying, on the one hand, you as a college can offer something, and the college can say, the high school can say, great, or, we'd be happy to help you enroll students. But, are you ready for a closer relationship? Or maybe you already have a closer relationship. So we have seen situations where there's real co-ownership between between K-12 and the colleges in developing these kinds of projects. Sometimes those came out of partnerships around dual enrollment, existing partnerships of one kind or another. But I think you have to think about who's able to bring what to the table and who's got the resources too. Right now you all have the grants, so that makes a difference. But when you have partners like this gentleman, who are really ready to say we want to own college readiness too, you have the chance to really push that, use these grants to push those kind of partnerships that can have a much longer term effect. College readiness assessments, you're in the process, I think, of transitioning to PARC. What is that going to mean for knowing whether students are on track to being college ready? Will you still need to use the AccuPlacer? Is that, will there be a value added in making that available? Is it best in the 11th grade? So the 11th grade, there's the advantage of it being able to then do something in the 12th grade, use that 12th grade year as effectively as possible. If it's in the 12th grade, students will know, okay, I only have a few more months until it's time for college. Maybe I need to be doing a few things, just to make sure I get ready. In some places where there are scarcer resources, they'll just test students who are applying for a program such as this. that can be an option as well. So then format for the course itself, we kind of talked about that. So, time on task, scalability. I think, one of the things that has been pretty clear through CCRC's research on online courses and interaction with technologies, students often need, a fair amount of structure and support. So, I think making sure, especially if you're heavily dependent on technology, making sure those supports are really in place is going to be part of trying to think about, how you want to do that. And then content options we've already talked about quite a lot. So, do you just focus on math? Because that's, the vast majority of students who need remediation is in math. A lot in English too, but there's a lot in math. So just making sure that students get a solid math foundation during their senior year, or do you dig more into English? Because there are a lot of topics in English. You can embed a lot of critical thinking and writing and kinds of things you need for college. Picking which students you're going to serve. We saw very different kinds of decisions made about this in the states that we visited. If it's just those students on the bubble, you're going to get more of them college ready. But a lot more students end up going to college than we expect to. And, so do you want to try to make sure that you're serving the students, a wider range of students who need it? And also, if your target is low-income students, they're less likely to be the ones that are on that bubble, right? So that's one of those tricky trade-offs. So I think I'll stop there. And are there any? This is kind of my working list of design choices. I just kind of stuck that on here, and I'm going to keep adding to it. If anybody has suggestions of choices or topics to add to that, I'd sure appreciate it. But let me just open it up for any final questions or comments.
I have the microphone here, so if you have any questions, we can take about 2 questions. Any questions from the audience? Okay, James.
I feel like I'm my colleague. Just a quick question. I feel like I should probably already know this, but I'm hoping you do. I believe AccuPlacer, which is what we use in New Jersey, misplaces about 30% of students up or down and putting them in a class they're not ready for or putting them in a class they don't need. Are there better known assessments that we could potentially already use that could help significantly in placing students appropriately?
Should we defer to the college board? No. Could I answer that? Basically, either Compass or AccuPlacer, according to research from CCRC, are likely to misplace large numbers of students, and more students get placed into. It tends to err on the side of placing students in remediation. What is better, according to the research that my colleagues have done, is placement tests in combination with high school GPA, especially. High school GPA by itself, at least in the studies they did, was more accurate than just placement tests alone. But in combination, they were good. I'm sorry.
Mr. Henry?
Hi, thank you. And that was where I was going to go also in terms of AccuPlacer does recommend using additional data points beyond just test scores. And I'd be happy to talk with any of you about the way the platform can do that, because we can automate a lot of that work for you to make it a little easier to accomplish.
Thank you. And if I might add, just in our work from the center, and I'm so glad you raised your hand, Ken. Salem Community College is one of the first colleges that we know of in New Jersey that's using multiple measures in placing students. So maybe, Ken, you can comment to that.
You read my mind. The Salem Community College has been using overall high school GPA based on CCRC's research as an alternative means to place high school students instead of AccuPlacer. Basically, if students come in with a official high school transcript with an overall GPA of 3.0 or higher, they don't have to take the AccuPlacer, and they get placed in college level courses, and the success of those students in courses is better than students that are placed exclusively by successful AccuPlacer results. So, we haven't answered questions, as far as, how many of these students would have placed in college level anyway, or those types of things. But the success of that program and the data that we've tracked with that over 1.5 years now leads me to recommend that anyone who isn't using that type of placement method should do so as soon as possible.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And that's, we're doing separate work on that, on multiple measures in the state of New York, and are going to be looking at whether students actually have better outcomes in college using different kinds of algorithms. One thing I think we need to think about, though, is as we're working with high school students, how do we make sure the message is really clear? So, if you're using AccuPlacer at the college, I would think you'd want to use that with the high school students as much as possible. That kind of thing.
Passaic County College, we have tried the looking at the student transcripts and GPA, and it really did not work for us. So unfortunately, even with the best of intentions, when you try to use multiple measures that we should, along with the AccuPlacer, it doesn't work all the time.
Well, how did your students not?
Well, what we did, we looked at the transcript-specific courses, calculus, statistics, and what have you, and then when we gave the AccuPlacer, these students did miserably on the math portion. So it did not really validate what the high school scores showed.
So the question is, how did they do in the
The question is really uncommon, basically, to follow up on the same experience.
No, I'm responding. So I think the question would be, how did they do in the first college level course? I mean, I think that's what would have to be looked at, because the GPA and the AccuPlacer may not be relevant, but how did they actually do in college? That's the question.